To tell us more about President Park's second state visit as Korea's leader, Professor Brian Myers of Tongso University joins us now in the studio. Welcome.
Thank you.
So President Park and his trip to China comes about a month after her visit to the United States. And in China, she's scheduled to meet with China's top 3 politicians separately. And it's quite rare for a visiting president to do so. What's the significance?
Yeah, it is a big deal. I mean, you've got the Chinese President Xi Jinping, you've got the Chinese Premier Li Keqiang, and you've got Zhang Dejiang, who of course is the chairman of the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress. It's a big deal just to meet them all at once, but to get a private audience with each one is just an indication of how far South Korea has gone up in the world. You know, it's an indication of just how important the relationship is to Beijing. It's not just a trade relationship, although that runs into the hundreds of billions of dollars, but a reflection of South Korea's importance as a cultural power, a soft power. I think the Chinese public is already very well aware of President Park. Her book has been selling well there. And I think this is going to be an image opportunity for the Chinese politicians in front of their own people.
Right, and speaking of South Korea's rise in the eyes of China, we've seen a bit of a lowering of North Korea in the eyes of Beijing. Can we expect to see President Park push for a greater support from Beijing to help denuclearize North Korea, or are they going to just stay in the same place?
I think that's definitely going to be high on the agenda. I'm not sure if it's going to be the top thing on her agenda, because the relationship between the two countries is almost too important just to stake it on one issue. But it's no secret that President Park has been unhappy with the way in which China has handled North Korea's provocations in the past. Just to go back to 2010, for example, when we had the Cheonan sinking and the Yeonpyeong attack, and each time the Chinese came out with these very vague, wishy-washy statements about how both sides should cool it and play nice with each other. She's going to want something more than that this time. Whether she's going to get it, I'm a little bit skeptical. We have been hearing that the Chinese are more critical of North Korea than before, but it would really be quite a blow to Pyongyang if the Chinese were to use President Park's visit as an opportunity to criticize Pyongyang directly.
Well, last month, North Korean officials also made a visit to China. Do you think there may have been some pre-talks between North Korea and China regarding President Park's visit?
I think it's been really big probably on the North Koreans' agenda. This has probably been the #1 issue for them for the past couple of weeks. And no doubt there's been diplomatic contacts going through the embassies in Pyongyang and Beijing as well. In a sense, North Korea relies on China in the same extent that South Korea relied on the United States until like the 1970s. There's really no way to overestimate the importance of China to North Korea. So they're very, very nervous that the Chinese could come out and make some kind of statement which sort of throws Beijing into Seoul's camp.
Well, North Korea itself has been trying to curry favor by launching its peace offensive against many countries that have been in the region and elsewhere. But President Park could be said to be bringing her own business or economic offensive with 71 business leaders in her delegation. What's the significance of the economic ties?
Well, they're really just enormously important. I mean, South Korea's economic prosperity is also a security issue in a certain extent. I mean, the better the economy is in this country, the stronger South Korea appears vis-a-vis North Korea as well. So this is why I think that President Park is probably not going to be so foolish as to stake the whole success or failure of this visit on the North Korea issue. I think she realizes China is in a pretty difficult position. It's not going to be able to come right out and cut the relationship with Pyongyang anytime soon. So she's going to want, I think, some kind of symbolic progress on the business or economic front so that she can come back and tell the South Korean public that the visit was an unqualified success. So we're going to see memoranda of understanding for economic cooperation. We're probably going to hear some kind of positive noises in regard to a free trade agreement. But let's face it, China is not a communist country anymore. The days are gone when the Chinese government could kind of tell its companies, you work with these foreigners. That's not going to happen, of course. But still, we're going to hear plenty of good news, I'm sure.
And lastly, Dr. Myers, what sort of impact would this Seoul-Beijing summit talk have on North Korea's future diplomatic relations with the surrounding regional powers?
Well, of course, it depends what is said in the summit declaration. If Beijing pretty much makes the same kind of vague statement about how both sides have to work together, then Pyongyang is going to breathe a little sigh of relief. But even if Beijing does not come out and criticize Pyongyang, I think the whole symbolism and the whole feel-good feeling that's going to be coming out of Beijing during President Park's visit is going to make the North Koreans very nervous, and it's probably going to make them work a little bit harder to try to please China in the future.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your insights tonight.
Sure thing.